Welcome, everyone. Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance. You're on the Dr. Finance Live podcast. We have an incredible guest today, Tim Storey. He's an amazing speaker, folks, amazing mentor to so many celebrities, and a great friend. Tim Storey. Welcome, Tim Storey. Welcome, Tim. How are you, sir?
I'm good, and what a privilege. Who wouldn't want to be called Dr. Finance?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Tim. I'd love for our audience to get to know you. Maybe we could start with a quick 30-second snapshot of your bio, and then we'll get into your story for a little bit, and then we got some questions.
All right, so young guy from Los Angeles. That's how I was raised. In high school, I was good in sports, and someone gave me a book about the life of Mother Teresa, and I read this book, and it kind of like touched me. And so I decided that I wanted to give at least a little bit of my life towards humanitarian work. I ended up going to seminary, continued to go on, and got a doctorate in world religion. And I've spent my life traveling the world, lifting up people. I've now been to 78 countries of the world doing that.
Wow. That is amazing, Tim. Tim, and you're being humble, so I really want to get into your story. I mean, you've worked with so many of the most amazing, talented people on this planet. And I'd like to just step back for a second. So where were you originally from again?
So I'm born in Compton, California. So in our situation, we had 7 people in the family, and we had a 2-bedroom apartment. So we were like cramped and crowded. But one of the things that was cool is that we still had a lot of humor, and we had a lot of expectations that we would do better. But that's how I started. And then I started to get really good mentors in my life, anywhere from my school teachers, who my teachers were great to me, and my coaches, and started to build myself out, and then moved on from there.
That's incredible, Tim. So Tim, you grew up in Compton in California. I'm an East Coast guy. I live in Philadelphia. So I apologize. I don't really know the California scene too well. What was it like growing up over there?
Well, I think that in Compton, California, I think that one of the things that it's known for is a lot of the challenges. So you had a lot of challenges at that time with lower income. You had challenges with gangs, just a lot of conflict. It still goes on, but not to the degree that it was going on back when I was a kid. But out of Compton comes people like Dr. Dre, Kendrick Lamar. These are, entertainers. Then the Williams sisters, and that was a great movie, King Richard, about their dad. So there was a lot of adversity. So you literally woke up to adversity. You felt the tension that was going on, but that continued in my childhood. So because when we came out of Compton, we continued to live in various parts of LA where we were just trying to get through. And we were stuck in what I call an almost life. We were pretty much stuck at that point.
So what did you do to overcome? I mean, that's a huge struggle. I mean, I came out of South Philadelphia. It's not easy when you come from a very difficult area to rise up, especially to break all the ceilings that you did. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's different for everybody. But for me, you'll see this a lot in the African-American community where people talk about religion and God. But I would say the places we go to as inner city kids, one would be the barbershop that you would talk. The other would be like a diner. And the third is a church. And the church world did something for me because they would tell me these outlandish stories. Like there was a guy named Noah, and he built a boat, and I believed it. And Jonah, and he got swallowed by a whale. So I was like this young inner city kid that the church world really kind of built my faith that there was something outside of what I was living in. And then the second tier of that would be my teachers, man. That's one reason I love education and teachers so much. So my 3rd grade teacher, 4th grade teacher, 5th, 6th, those people really started to help formulate my life in a very nice way.
What role did the church play in bringing you up? Would you say a significant part? Because I know you're doing pastor stuff right now, and for
Yeah.
someone to get to that level, something must have clicked in you from a youth, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think for me, and I think that one of the compliments that I get, because I've been doing like a Hollywood Bible study in Beverly Hills since 1992. I started in the house of Diane Cannon, who was married to Cary Grant. And then I got to work with the likes of James Caan, who just recently passed away, Elliot Gould, Charlton Heston, Vidal Sassoon. I had a Bible study in Lee Iacocca's house, and I don't think many people can say that. But at my meetings, you would see anywhere from Robert Downey Jr. over here to Jared Leto over here to you know, young stars of upcoming things, Jessica Simpson over there. So my Hollywood Bible study went to over 1,700 people. That was part of my study, and that went on for over 20 years. And I still do it, but I just do it 3 times a year now. But I think that faith to me helped me to understand that there was something bigger than what I saw, because what I saw was cramped and crowded and not a lot of hope. You know, there was never talk about college or doing well or having money. It was just like more about survival and getting through. So the church life to me helped expand my horizons. But that's for me. That's what happened for me.
So Tim, you want to tell us a little about your teenage years, like growing up? Were you still in Compton, or I guess you moved to LA?
Yeah, so we had moved into another part of LA. And so my teenage years I was always very protected. And so it was an interesting thing. The guys in the neighborhood would be like, don't mess with Timmy Storey. He's going to make it. I promise you, I'm not even joking. So like if I would go to the neighborhood park and guys were like smoking weed and they were passing it, they would say, pass it by Timmy. And I was like 11, 12, 13. So the older guys that were like 15, 16, 17, they were already protecting me.
Wow.
They were saying, he's the guy that's going to make it. Don't mess with him. So I was really protected, which is kind of wild. And it wasn't just because of sports, because I was good enough in sports. And it wasn't just because of personality. These guys just really saw something in me. And then later in life, when I started to do really well, they've all come back, because I know so many guys from the neighborhood still. And they're like, we just knew it. We just knew it. We just knew that we had to help you to get to where you were going to be.
Yeah. That's like I'm sensing it. I'm thinking about when I was a kid too. I had some similarities. That is crazy. It's almost like it was predestined.
Yeah, I really think so, because I think that's unusual, that you would think sometimes because I was so disciplined that you would think that they would almost want to take me off my discipline, but they were protecting my discipline. And, you know, I didn't see that someday it would go to the levels where it is in my life now, but I did see that something was going to happen, but they helped me to see the light even more.
Tim, when I was growing up, I know this is totally about you, but I see a lot of similarities in us, and I'd like to share something with you. When I was growing up, I was always kind of that odd person, but I fit in at the same time. It was weird. It was like I was the smart guy, but I was also, you know, the cool guy at the same time. I had this weird personality where it was just, you know, I fit in no matter where I went, but yet I was still an oddball.
Yeah.
I feel maybe in your story, it sounds very similar. They knew that you were very special and different, yet they allowed you to fit in. Like, would you say that kind of was?
Yeah,
similar?
like no doubt about it. And yeah, it is interesting, the similarities in both of us. But to me, I feel like there's times that it's almost like God just almost goes like ding, and he like touches somebody. And they are going to be at least one of the people in the family that's going to get the people up and out, up and out. And I have this saying where I say, God will always deliver his deliverers. See, because you got to get delivered before you become a deliverer. So like Moses in the Bible, even when he was going through challenges and wandering, God needed to deliver his deliverers. So in the case of me and you, we are deliverers. We're deliverers of good news. We're deliverers of hope. You're helping people in finances. I'm helping people turn their setbacks to comebacks and get a miracle mentality. So I feel no doubt about it that both of us have had the hand of God on us.
Thank you, Tim. Tim, so continuing on your story, were you an entrepreneur at all? I mean, this is a finance podcast, business podcast. Were you doing any entrepreneurial stuff or business stuff, paper boy routes, or any of that kind of stuff growing up? Probably everything, I imagine.
Yeah, but the thing is that my motives were never like money. My motives were like to be excellent at what I did. I'll give you an example. So there was a guy named Mr. Anderson who was a guy, Caucasian guy. And he was not exactly in my neighborhood. He was like 30 minutes away. So when I was 15 and a half, my sister used to drive me to work and I was a dishwasher. And I was such a good dishwasher that Mr. Anderson said to me, Timmy, can you come in the back and let's talk? Because you were supposed to be 16, but he hired me at 15 and a half because he liked me. And he said, I want to tell you something. I have put over $100,000 in this business. And that was a lot of money at that time. And he said, you work like you're trying to get me my money back. I said, you're right. I said, because we were lower income, but my mother told me we were never lower class. I said, so I show up at everything early and I never do a half-assed job because my mother taught us don't do that. And the guy got emotional and he said, my God, like, where do they get kids like you? And I remember this idea of just prospering where I was planted, from dishwasher to busboy to assistant waiter. And then other restaurant owners would at times come and try to steal me from Mr. Anderson, and I would never go. So this idea of building another person's dream and loyalty has taken me to amazing places I could have never manipulated myself into. So I'm very much an entrepreneur. Started saving early, started investing early, and have been very fortunate to ride a very nice wave since probably my early 20s.
What was speaking of your 20s? What was your 20s like? Did you wind up going to college, or you just
So the thing is, well, I was at seminary, and so which is a college. I was at the seminary, and I was already an entrepreneur because I had created, outside of ministry, something in the self-help world where I was going into inner city schools and teaching them on dreams. Now, I'd never heard of Tony Robbins at that time because he's just a few years older than me. I was not knowing about Les Brown, who's now one of my best friends. So I was just going on what I felt. And then what happened later, as I got into being 24, 25, people like Reggie White, who played for the Eagles. Mm-hmm. Reggie said, I have money and you have a gift. Let's work together and help the inner cities. And then he started getting me in all these NFL chapels, and then it was game on.
Wow.
I mean, I was running with the biggest NFL stars in the world at 24, 25, 26. And so many of them were giving me, tens of thousands of dollars into my nonprofits, and then also teaching me a lot about business for my for-profit side.
So you're partly an Eagle.
Yeah. And I
based
still
on
like
that story.
Yeah, because they had Keith Byers, who became a great friend, Irving Fryer, great player, Randall Cunningham, who I consider a friend. So the Eagles, as you know, were really cool back in the early 80s. And then when those guys ventured off into different teams like the Dolphins and the Vikings, they took me with them. So imagine being in your 20s and these big football players are saying, we have money you have a gift. But after a while, you know, you're meeting their attorneys.
Yeah.
You're meeting their financial consultants. And guess what's happening to me? I'm now starting to get pulled into deals. So I started learning.
That's incredible, Tim. I actually didn't know that part about your story. That's so basically that helped you. You came out from the sports angle a little bit. I didn't know you had, so there's a little bit of a sports background to you.
Yes, no doubt about it. And so, but I'm still in that because I now, in one of my businesses, I'm in the recovery world and helping athletes and helping to run recovery centers. And in the past, I've been part owner of 5 recovery centers, addiction centers. So I work with the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. So I'm still way up in that world of current players that are stars and also Hall of Fame players that are no longer playing their sport.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. So Tim, can you take us to present then from that point? Like at what point did you decide to open up a ministry? You said about 20 years ago. And how, I'm assuming you were targeting mostly like Hollywood people. Is that right?
I think that in life, you would agree with this. Some things you decide, other things you just discover.
Yeah.
I think that even though I'm a really good life coach and I'm all about choices and decisions, and even wrote a book on that called Utmost Living with Random House that Lee Iacocca endorsed several years ago, that I think a lot of my life is not even in my decisions, it's in my discovery. And one of my friends said, Tim, you're like Forrest Gump. I'll turn on CNN News and there you are. I turn on Good Morning America and there you are. I turn on Oprah, or I'm at the airport. So now I'm in like 90 airports around the world with my own talk show with Reach TV.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little second.
And I promise you right now, I don't go after these things. What I do is I build my spot. I become really good at a few things, okay? And people then seem to want what I'm good at. And they'll bring me in. So that's what happened, you know, in ministry. I never considered myself like a typical like pastor or a typical preacher. I always saw myself more as a humanitarian who spoke, okay? And then I'm very inclusive. I have friends from all faiths, all walks of life. My personal life is I really believe that Jesus Christ has changed my life, and I'm a Jesus guy in and out. But for people that don't know about that or don't understand it, the best I could do is be an example and not always just talk about it. But so the faith side of me is there, but also the business side is very strong. I'm in the middle of some amazing businesses that do well, and continued in that humanitarian side that you brought up earlier.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. All right, Tim. So I want to allow time for our questions. And by the way, you're always invited. I'd love to have you back, and we can really do a deep dive another day if you're.
Of course. Interested. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, but by the way, before I get to the questions, just a thought on what you just said. So you got, as you built your space, right? You build your space, and then people start bringing deals to you based on the space that they are attracted to. They like your space, so they want you in on the deals, right?
Yeah.
So I've been finding as I'm rising a little bit, you know, that's what's happening to me. But unfortunately, I guess a byproduct of that is there's a lot of people who start bringing you the really nasty deals. And a lot of scammers start coming out. I mean, like people with SEC fraud charges and everything, like they just seem to gravitate to you the higher you climb. Like, how do you deal with that? I mean, I'm just asking.
Again, I've been fortunate because from the kids in the neighborhood that were older and protecting me, then becoming real strong in Beverly Hills in my 20s, when you're talking to a Vidal Sassoon, and he built this amazing empire, and then you get in with John Paul DeJoria, who sold one company for $5 billion called Patron. So these are my mentors. And so these guys, they put me with their lawyers. They put me with their financial guys. And these are gentlemen that I was able to and continue to be able to go to them on a weekly basis and say, what do you think about this deal? So before I do a deal, it's got to go through like 3 tiers. Mm. So you might get to me, and I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, but then it's going to go to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then we might go on that. So, and I don't say that in a braggadocious way that I have 3 tiers, but I just find that that's smart to vet a deal to see if it's on brand, because I want everything to be on brand. And what would your brand be? That is getting people up and out, up out of your difficulty and out into the space where you're supposed to be and living your life and not just going through life. So anything I do in all these different companies is about up and out.
I appreciate that, Tim. The reason I also wanted to bring it up is recently I had a person who's already up had recommended this other person, and they didn't do their homework. And I'm also finding as a common theme, the higher I get, like a lot of folks at the top, sometimes they don't do their homework. They let people in their inner circle that they shouldn't have. And 100%. That's why I don't even know how to respond to this person. It's just.
Yeah. And I think that for everybody watching, I think the best thing is it's all about wisdom.
Yeah.
And really using wisdom in all the choices you make. And a choice is a selection. It's like when you get a menu at a restaurant, you have the time to peruse. So I like what Robert Schuller used to say. He says, never make a big decision in a downtime, but never make a big decision in a up time, because sometimes you're going just on your adrenaline emotion. And when you're in downtime, you're not thinking clearly. So I like to even myself out and say, hey, okay, look at this that came at me. Because in my world, because I don't think that there's many people I cannot get to with my network. I'm bombarded all the time about, hey, can you take this to so-and-so? Mm-hmm. That's literally on a daily basis. It's not even a weekly basis. It's and as you see, I choose my words carefully. That's a daily basis, not even weekly. So I have to really be careful with all that.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Tim, great share, by the way. Thank you. All right, we're going to move into the next segment. I'd like to talk about some of the things you're doing. Specifically, I want to start with your books, though. So can you provide us with an overview of your books, maybe 1 to 2 minutes, all the books you wrote and the titles?
Well, the book I'm excited about now is HarperCollins has helped me with my last book called The Miracle Mentality. And the whole idea is to align yourself with your childhood innocence. Kids are thinking outside the box. So thinking extraordinary, unusual, uncommon. When I go to these inner city schools and I say, you guys, what do you want to be? These are like little kids. They say like, I want to be like LeBron James. I want to be like Beyonce. None of them says, I want to be bankrupt 7 times. I want to be divorced 5 times, because they have a miracle mentality. So I really break it down. I think this book is phenomenal. My editor is Nick Childs, who just did Jamie Foxx's last book. Nick Childs is brilliant, African-American man, taught at Princeton. And so this book is dope, and it is working. Everybody has this book. So The Miracle Mentality, you can get it right now on Amazon. And then I also do the voice. I read it because I like to read aloud. I read aloud about 2 to 3 times a week just to practice my diction. And so I read aloud. And but that book will really help you. And I talk about don't live in the mundane, don't get stuck in the messy, don't get stuck in the madness. You have to make room for the miracles.
Thank you, Tim. So how many books total?
Well, I've written 9. I've written 9 books, and Oprah has helped me with about every one of them. So they're doing okay.
That is awesome. Thank you, Tim. All right, Tim. So I want to talk real quick. I don't know. Do you have a podcast? I believe you have a podcast or
No, I have a TV show.
TV show. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah, so, you know, I got bummed out of many years ago. I got signed by Telepictures, and they're the ones that do Ellen DeGeneres, and they like me over there still, and I still might do a deal with them. But I was so excited. My agent is the same one that has Kim Kardashian and all the Kardashians, and man, they had built my set. I was in New York practicing. They're like, you better get ready, buddy, because you're next. The Tim Storey show, man, Monday through Friday, like an Oprah type show. So they signed me, held me for 1 year, held me for the second year, and then they said, Tim, the space is getting too crowded. It's changed. I was like, oh. But sometimes your delays are not your denials. And so I was approached by my friends at Reach TV, and they talked to me about doing these 5-minute segments in 90 airports around the world where Tim Storey would just motivate and talk about, you know, sometimes you got to get left before you get right. And they became like a hit. So even in the Philadelphia airport yesterday, when I sat down at this restaurant, 2 waitresses came up and goes, hey, you're the guy we got to look at all day.
They recognize you?
Yeah, nonstop.
Wow.
I will tell you guys, in all the platforms that I do, I've spoken at every 10X conference but one. I've traveled with Oprah. I've done a 20-city tour with Steve Harvey. I've never been so recognized as from these airport things because they're putting me on nonstop.
When did it start, Tim? Sorry to interrupt you. When did you start all this?
Every 4 hours, you got to look at my face. I'm right there. So this started like 2 years ago with the 5-minute segments and just 2 months ago with these interviews. But I'm going to interview the biggest stars in the world, but also financial stars, humanitarian stars. So we're onto something big. So I'm enjoying that. But I plan on being like a Larry King. That's where I'm headed. Larry King was my friend. Larry King and I ate at the same diner probably 4 days a week in Beverly Hills when I was living in Beverly Hills full time, called Nate and Al's. And Larry King was great to me. He helped mentor me. He taught me what it was like to be a good interviewer. So I've got my show in the airports. I'll keep that, but I plan on doing a very cool talk show for the rest of my life.
That is incredible, Tim. By the way, Larry King, I studied a lot about him trying to set this podcast up. I want to quiz you real quick. What was Larry King's favorite question?
Well, Larry King, the thing that he said to me is that he says, my strength is that I'm very curious. Mm-hmm. So he said, when I see a guest, I'm not thinking about coming up with a great question. I'm curious about their life. He said, so if I'm interviewing Bono from U2, he goes, I don't know much. I want to find out how he became Bono, how he can get 80,000 people with U2 at a stadium. So the curiosity, and Larry King, super good listener and excellent with the follow-up question. And you do good with that as well.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. By the way, you know, you were, I heard you were on a stage in your 20s with 85,000 plus people. I mean, you were doing big, gigantic stages with the ministry, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that right? Or?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough that there was several ministers that were like the Joel Osteens of their day. And they were probably the 2 biggest of their day. And they both liked me. And starting at age 22, they started taking me around the world. So I was speaking to crowds of 13,000, then it went to 30,000, but 30,000 a lot. Wow. When I was only like 24, 25, 28, 85,000. So I would play around a lot in the 50, 55, 60,000s, even at 26, 27, 28, had my own conference of 8,100 people when I was 29 years of age. So
that's unbelievable.
I'm kind of an old soul, and with a young body and a young face. But my thing is, I just love helping people. So even if I'm speaking at an inner city kid of 13 or speaking to 37,000 people for Ed Milet, I'm liking both.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Tim, that's incredible. And, you know, we make a big deal in Clubhouse about having a few thousand people, 85,000, 50,000 average. That's amazing numbers.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy to it. About to do another one overseas real soon. I think that's going to be like 40,000. And that's like in the whole tech business. But I do all kinds of things. I do it in like the music industry, in the tech industry. So I think that's what's unusual about creating a message that can like hit all the different pillars. I'm not just in one. I get to like speak in so many types of places.
Thank you, Tim. And best wishes with the new show, by the way. Definitely look forward to hearing that. So Tim, just a few questions, then we'll get to our temple questions. I've asked everyone from Les Brown to Brett Farr. I just want to ask you a few other questions first. We'll figure about 1 to 2 minutes each. So we kind of hinted at this a little bit earlier. Excuse me. Loneliness at the top. So I want to talk about that. You know, breaking a lot of glass ceilings. Sometimes you get to the top, but especially when you're venturing into the unknown. So what can heroes and great leaders do to ensure they don't feel alone at the top?
Yeah, I think that the key is you could be the right person with the right plan, but you have to have your partners. And I think that when somebody starts to do well, if you're not careful, you don't really answer people's texts as fast. You don't call people back, but you probably should, because there's going to be a lot of challenges the higher you go. So there's actually a scripture in the Bible, Ecclesiastes 4:9, that says, pity the person who when they fall has no one to help them up, or if they're cold, they have no one to keep them warm. So I would say one of the blessings of my life is because I'm such a sower. Like I just texted David Meltzer yesterday, your buddy, because I was somewhere and I saw his TV program on, and just to like give him a shout out, and then he texts me right back. I am constantly texting my friends. So I take the time to write a motivational, inspirational, I care about you text to at least 10 people every day, every single day. I'm just sowing seed into their life. So I think that the power of partnership is so important, because I think there is a loneliness at the top, because when you start to do really well at a certain period, because that doesn't mean you'll be doing well 3 years down the line. We see that like in NBA players or movie stars or rock stars. So that's why I always keep my feet on the ground, because I've been fortunate enough to ride this wave for a long time, and I hope it lasts as long as it's supposed to. But there are some times of deep loneliness, because like, who do you share stuff with? Who do you share your pain with? Who do you share your temptations with? Who do you share your victories with? Because not everybody wants to hear all your victories.
That is a brilliant share. Thank you, Tim. Tim, how does it feel to be good friends with Oprah Winfrey? Now, I know you know everybody pretty much at the top, but I mean, Oprah is like a really good friend of yours. And let's face it, you know, Oprah is, especially in our industry, you know, it's like everyone wants to be interviewed by Oprah. They want to see interviewed. They want to just shake her hand. I hear this on Clubhouse all the time, and you are personally friends with her. So,
yeah, I think with her, I grew up watching her, even though she's not much older than me, but I grew up watching her. And when I would watch her, I always knew I was going to be her friend. And it was interesting that one of her best friends, Gayle King, who's on CBS Morning News, who's also my great friend, she started to just tell Oprah, like, you got to connect to Tim. And then this is really wild. Like, the Quincy Jones has been mentoring me since my late 20s. He told Oprah, she said to me, Tim, like 9 times, you have got to have Tim on, like you and Tim. And then the third person became Diane Hudson, who was Oprah's producer for 23 years, who's just one of the smartest ladies I've ever met in my life. So Oprah had it coming at her from every area. So when we finally met almost awesome. 10 years ago, she was like, she goes, I get it. And the first time we sat down, we went at it forever. Like, we're real friends. We talk about everything of what's trending, who's acting silly, who's not, who's coming up, who's not. We have great talks, and she's been great to me. Could you imagine Oprah saying, I feel that I want to open up doors for you and watch what I do. I mean, mind-boggling what this lady has done for my life as far as the doors that she's opened. I think probably 3 of the 7 businesses that I'm either owner of or part owner came from the fact that people saw that I was working with her at such a high level. They wanted to connect to me. Yeah.
That's incredible, Tim. By the way, I want to give you kudos to that little scenario you just said, because I noticed that a lot when someone keeps getting the hints from all around them, like their closest circle, eventually they'll give in. Now they'll look at Quincy Jones 9 times. Imagine that, 9 times.
And he's busy.
Right? Thank you, Tim. Tim, we talked about this on Clubhouse one night, but I want to expand it a little bit more, maybe 1 to 2 minutes. How do you know how to find the next superstar? Now, I want to preface this question. You had mentioned, there's certain people coming up and, certain tricks to look for, but it's really interesting as I'm building these stages. Sometimes you never know, you find a gold mine sitting in stage in Clubhouse, and they actually could be the next superstar. And I really feel this way. You've experienced this firsthand. You've actually seen people and watched them rise really fast. So what's your thoughts on the question again was, how do you know how to find the next superstar?
Yeah. So what I just want to say this, when I think of a superstar, I don't think of like somebody that just scales over everybody and then blows us away. And then from their platform, they then speak down to us on how we can make it. So I think a kid that stutters is a superstar. I think a child that overcomes being bullied is a superstar. I think my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Sullivan, was a superstar. So I don't look at it that way, even though, like, in my phone, I probably have more superstars than anybody in my field that does what I do, that are in this phone, that people would consider famous and superstars. It's not how I look at it. I think the key is to do your assignment. Like, what is your assignment? And so do your assignment and build your spot. And life will shine the spotlight on your spot. Like, this is really powerful stuff. Like, if I move in a new apartment and I need cable, and the cable guy comes and hooks it up, he's now a superstar in my eyes.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That's a great point.
I promise you, this is how I think. So as much as people get enamored by these big name people and people that we looked up to, and like, I've known the Kardashians since they were kids. Robert Kardashian was one of my great friends. Kim has always been nice to me. Chloe's always nice. Courtney's always been nice. The little ones have always been nice. And then, I've been running with Kanye West since 2006. Come on, they're just doing their job and their assignment. And we live in a society that gets very hyped on what they call celebrity. But last thing I'll say on this, the word celebrity means to be celebrated. So we're all celebrities. So I celebrate you, you celebrate me. Now we're both celebrities.
Thank you. Great point. Thank you.
I promise you that's how I see it.
I agree with your philosophy on 100%. This just is interesting to hear this from you though, because you actually know these what society calls as celebrities. So
I mean, I'm in these unusual situations, like let's say sitting at a restaurant with Robert Downey, who we do some things together still, and we've been around each other since 1999. And then to see them come at Robert so heavy, but I see Robert as my guy. That's my guy, because I knew him before Iron Man. But to the world, he's Tony Stark and Iron Man. But to him, he's Robert, good son, good husband, good father. And that's how he sees life. And so I think that, yeah, because I see both sides. So I see what people see about these friends of mine, but I also see the reality of our lives. And we're all just human beings. And then sometimes when you're a celebrity, everything just gets amplified.
Thank you, Tim. I'm sorry, I just remembered something. I read somewhere that your dad worked at Bethlehem Steel. Is that correct?
Yeah. So you're going to tie me into Pennsylvania, where you
currently live. Before I forget, yeah, because Bethlehem is not too far from Philly, and they got a great music fest over there. It's got a really cool town. I think The Rock was from there too, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right. So my dad, when he was 20, he went to work just as a young guy in Bethlehem Steel, and then stayed there his entire life, working as a blue collar worker at Bethlehem Steel. But you know, that kind of thing taught me a lot, because he was what they called a melter. So if you could ever look into old school steel mills, you would see that there's like steel on fire. Mm. He was one of the guys deep in there, because they got paid more money, and that was interesting to him. But he also had, like, on his very thick long sleeve shirts, holes in them, and then many times he'd have burns because the flames would fly and hit them, but never complained. So that's one thing I learned about, like, a Bethlehem Steel guy. They were like loyal to their thing. And yeah, so I'm glad, and I've been fortunate to be raised by a mother who worked at a donut shop. And her claim to fame is she became the manager of Winchell's Donut Shop, and a still working dad has given me a very strong work ethic. And you know this, that even on being on your podcast today, I was on early. Do you know I show up everywhere early? Like, I blow people away. Like, I could have a big meeting and I'm like 30 minutes in the parking lot early, but that comes from a still working dad and a donut shop working mother.
I hope you weren't waiting too long.
It wasn't that long.
Okay. I know you came on possibly a little bit for me. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Sorry for the digression. Because I thought that was pretty cool. Bethlehem, a lot of folks that come out are very tough, and that's a good point to highlight, like that being your dad. I'm sure it had some effect on you. So, thank you, Tim. Next question. So, what do you think of my Clubhouse stage? You're on there a few times already. Any thoughts?
I think you're onto something, but in all honesty, I think you're onto something in any stage you go on. So I think that you have a skill set of, number one, you are mastering a subject that we want to know about. How do I get money? How do I manage money? How do I invest money? Who do I lend my money to? What happens if my money starts to dip? Should I get nervous, intimidated, frustrated? So you're so good at what you have done, we could take your skill set to any platform. So it's not going to shock me if I start watching any news agency and saw that you were their new finance expert. That would not throw me off. It would not throw me off at all, just because you're that good. So if you end up selling like so many books on a certain subject in finances, nothing's going to shock me, because as Malcolm Gladwell says, you've taken a certain amount of hours to become masterful and you're becoming more masterful every week. So your Clubhouse stage is very, very good, but so would you on any other platform.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. That was a lot more than that was a bonus. But Tim, I want to also tell the audience, folks. So I believe we locked in a date right now. We're working on November 4th at 7 p.m., 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern time, roughly speaking, for Clubhouse. Tim will be the main guest speaker. So if you haven't found out already, we've run this room for about a year and a half. Run the room for about 6 hours, from roughly 6 p.m. to midnight. But the main guest speaker comes on from about 7 to 9. Most of them wind up staying an extra hour. They just love it so much. But feel free to join us, folks. Lock it in your calendar, November the 4th.
Yeah, we're gonna push this big. We have a little following on Instagram. I'm at 1.6 million now.
Oh wow!
So we will push it big. So you guys create an ad and then send it to us, and I'm gonna blast it. And I'm gonna get people on there that have never been on there before, and it's gonna make people smile.
What? Oh, that's incredible, Tim. But yeah, so I'll definitely do that. I got over 1 million on Facebook, over 100,000 on Twitter. So, I mean, we're building the numbers. I don't really look at numbers too much, because I found out from learning marketing, you don't really own those numbers. The other platforms do. They show who they want to, but.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
But we still, hey, listen, 14,000 on LinkedIn, and that's less than those numbers. But, you know, we got 2 governors in that mix. How many CEOs of universities? So we can definitely get the message out together combined, for sure.
No, so let's get the message out. I'm excited about it. And I think the thing that I can add to the game is things that I've learned from people who know. Like, let me give you an example. So Lee Iacocca says to me, when somebody's making a deal with you, this is the guy that was like the Richard Branson of his day, for those who don't know Iacocca. He said, let them talk. Let them talk. Too many salesmen, they talk too much. Let them talk. Make them empty out their pockets and put their stuff on the table of what they think this deal should be. Because now I see what's been in your pockets, and now I can see clearly what kind of deal I want with you. And I promise you, in my deal-making skills, I'm quite good. And you never see me raise my voice above this. That is a product of Lee Iacocca. And so many people have said, Tim, how the heck did you become this good? You didn't offend anybody, but you literally just doubled what they were going to give you. I said, I just listened, found out this guy's heart, saw what I could really bring to the company or not bring to the company. And if it's really going to help, let's do a win-win. Because I want a win-win. I don't want I win, you don't win as much. I want win-win. So I'm confident of what I can bring to a company. And I think that those are some things that we'll talk about that night, of things that I've learned from people who know, because I get to be around the best deal makers in the world.
And Tim, if you don't mind me giving you a compliment. So I've been in a situation with you with a quasi business meeting. We know what we're going to talk about, right? So, and I watched you, and it was definitely a different Tim Storey that I was experiencing there, that I've met on Clubhouse. And I got to say, I'm proud of you, man. Like, I saw how you were holding the fort down, and you do it in a way that you're not trying. It's just so casual. So I know that you're a great business guy, just the way you conduct yourself all the time. So thank you, Tim.
But thank you. But, you know, Barry Gordy is still flowing. That's the guy from Motown. He's 91, 92. Quincy Jones, my mentor, is like 89. And so, you know, I now look to guys like Magic Johnson, who I've known forever, and other people that are running really good businesses. So I get to be around these gentlemen, and it rubs off. It rubs off. You really learn. So it's not the loudest in the room and the chest pounder. You can get far being that person, but I don't really know if there's a lot of inner satisfaction just taking advantage of people. I think everything's got to be a win-win.
I agree. Thank you, Tim. Tim, okay, so we're going to enter into the template questions. I've asked pretty much everyone on this podcast here. I want to see if we can do this in like 30 seconds because I do have a couple other bonus questions, but I got to get through these.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you. All right. So, all right, first one is, can one book change the world? Maybe 30 seconds.
The Bible, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. All right, Tim, next question is, what role has networking played in your life?
Elevation. Changed me forever.
Thank you, Tim. All right, next question as an extension of that, is mentoring important? And who are some of your mentors?
Mentoring is a necessity. You will not scale unless you are properly mentored. You need to be tutored, coached, sculpted. That's why even Tiger Woods at his best had Butch Harmon in his ear mentoring him. Greatest tennis players, got to have mentors. Greatest singers. Seth Riggs is a mentor of a voice coach. He did anywhere from Christina Aguilera to Mariah Carey to Celine Dion to Michael Jackson. You have to have a mentor. You can only go so far without a mentor.
Who were some of your mentors, Tim? Maybe two or three.
My mentors were first Mrs. Sullivan, 3rd grade, Mrs. Cook, 4th grade, Mr. Probert, 5th grade. And then it became Quincy Jones, Barry Gordy, and guys like that.
Dude, that was the first time I ever had an answer like that. You know, I give you so much respect, Tim. Like I like you more every question I ask you. Like no one ever says that, but it's so important. It's so true. Like, yeah, if you were influenced as a kid too, most people forget those mentors, right?
Yeah, because just real quick, Mrs. Sullivan in 3rd grade, she looked like she was 7'5". She was super tall. And I remember one time I was being a class clown and she said, "Timmy, can you wait after class?" And the kids go, "Ooh." And then she pulled me aside. "I'm only in 3rd grade. I'm a young kid." She goes, "Timmy?" I said, "Yes, Miss Sullivan." She goes, "I expect more than that out of you, than being a class clown." She goes, "Do you understand?" I said, "Yes, I do." I never did that again in her class. That is good mentoring. I wanted to make her proud.
Wow.
It's powerful, right?
I mean, incredible and powerful, yeah. Tim, so real last point on this subject before we get to the next question. So Stephen Covey was on the last episode, and interesting fact, I remember you mentioned this, Robert G. Allen of his book right here, he's coming up pretty soon.
Multiple Streams of Income.
Yeah, he's going to follow this episode, right? And I know that you had said that this book changed your life. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, number one, Covey's book altered my life. Streams of Income, when he's got the mountain and you got to have multiple streams coming down. What? So the fact that you have both of those gentlemen in your Rolodex, congratulations. Because that's like having two of the best coaches. That's like having Pat Riley, who coached the Lakers for so many years, then went to the Miami Heat, and Phil Jackson. Okay. So those are two amazing coaches that have really helped me. Covey in core principles that I use in my coaching, and then Multiple Streams of Income that made me say, I can run 7, 8, maybe 12 businesses. No doubt. Multiple streams of income helped change my life.
I promise you, this was like my friend, Dr. Bernie Siegel says this all the time. He says, there's no coincidence, Tony, right? Like this was no accident. I didn't plan. I mean, this was not planned. I did not plan this at all to have you squeeze between these two legends. And the fact was, so Robert G. Allen, you said, was like basically your mentor from that book. His mentor was Stephen Covey's dad, Stephen R. Covey. And here you are, right in between both of them on this episode, and you're in the works to be my mentor. So yes. I found this very ironic. I woke up this morning, I was thinking about that, and I just discovered this like insight. I'm like,
no, but weird. it's really powerful, because what he did in the book of the Streams of Income is he made me see that it was possible, because in the old days, as you know, my dad, Bethlehem Steel, he wasn't thinking multiple streams of income. And people were always saying, like, don't spread yourself too thin. Like before this podcast, I was on a really big call about a project that I'm doing that's going to be very large with a lot of entertainers. And I could do that and do this, and then go get a coffee and then work on a TV show. So really, we can do more than we thought we could. If we could take 6, 7 classes at a time in school, we can handle more than we're giving ourselves credit.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate you allowing me to divert there. That was just an interesting observation I made. Wow. All right. So what are your favorite financial books, if any? And I include business, money, maybe one or two that off the top of your head.
I think Think and Grow Rich helped me. I think that it's not like it is a book that they're going to teach at Harvard, and maybe they have, but it's a book that has a lot of good hooks in it. And so it was a privilege that I was in that documentary when they did a documentary a couple of years ago. They had me, Grant Cardone, Lewis Howes, Sharon Lechter. But yeah, I think Think and Grow Rich has been something that's really, really helped my life with a lot of good hooks.
Thank you, Tim. Tim, next question, maybe 30 seconds. Do we need money to survive? Now, this might sound like a nonsense question, but you wouldn't believe how many people, you would believe how many people actually don't really get that concept.
You have to have money, and you have to have a good amount of it. And the reason is it gives you leverage. So money gives you leverage. So if somebody gets ill in your family, you now have leverage because you have money. And if you have an opportunity to maybe get a restaurant and somebody is getting rid of it, if you have money, if you have surplus, you have leverage to now possibly buy that restaurant and 3x your life or 5x your life, and maybe down the line 10x your life. So you do need money. Money wants you, and you need money. So money is your friend. Be nice to it. And money is your friend, and you're gonna have money. You are blessed to be a blessing. I like being blessed because I'm a blessing to people.
Now, Tim, you're a religious guy, so there's a lot of people out there in religions that see money as an enemy. What's your thoughts to that?
Well, I think that you have said this in some case of the Bible says that the love of money can be the root of all evil. And that is more the obsession. And because you don't want to be so obsessed with money where that becomes like the other woman in your life or the other man in your life. You want to use money as a friend and as a tool. So I'm not after money like that. Money follows my excellence. So when I started becoming excellent at things, speaking, coaching people, the money just followed. The money just came. Money will follow excellence. I promise you, all day long.
I believe Dr. John DeMartini said that on his podcast, because I think he was the one I asked the question, because Grant Cardone always says money follows attention. I think I asked him that question, and he had a very similar point. And I agree with that. It does. It follows excellence, and the attention comes right after the excellence. Would you agree in that order?
No doubt about it. And like even these guys that become great coaches in sports, they were just excellent coaching for someone else. Maybe they were like the 5th coach, but they were so excellent at it that they were pulled. So there's a Bible scripture that says, do you see a person skilled at his work? He will be brought before the presence of the kings. No doubt. That's what happened to Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey was struggling, and he was brought before the presence of the kings. Oprah Winfrey was just a news lady. She was a news lady. She was trying to talk like Barbara Walters, according to her story. She was brought before the presence of the kings.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Tim, next question as an extension is finance necessary for everyone? Now, finance, what I mean by finance is not what it's misconstrued sometimes is think of as funding. I see it as the science of finance. So is the science of finance necessary?
Okay, so break that down a little more for me and for the person listening and watching.
Sure. Thank you, Tim. You want me to define it?
Yeah.
All right, great. So finance for me is the management of wealth for individuals, groups, or organizations. Now, Tim, you asked me a powerful question for my field because I actually, in my first book, The Necessity of Finance, I had to redefine the sciences of finance and economics because they weren't defined in a lot of the books that I had to teach as a professor. So the difference between that and economics is the science of management of wealth for a nation and its divisions. It seems similar. They both manage wealth, but because of the entities, us versus our government, we don't have control like our government entities do. So we got to operate like within their rules, kind of like playing Simon Says, and we're just the players and someone else is Simon. The government would be Simon.
Well, I like what you're saying. And so you become a master in this field. So I see it as the same as you is, I would call it stewardship, that you have money, you have finance, and now you have to be a good steward of that money. Like how much you're going to give to charity, how much you're going to save, how much are you going to invest, how often should you invest. And so I see that as stewardship. I was really trained early in this. This is where the big boys got a hold of me quick. And I will shock people, for a person that has done well for a while. If I've ever lived over and then I realized, like, do I really need all this? I really don't have a problem downsizing and just living in a way that is probably more than comfortable, if I want to be honest. But I don't really feel like I have a big appetite just for excess.
So would you say finance is necessary for everyone?
100%. In fact, you're not going to leave the proper legacy for your children's children unless you have what you're teaching. You just will not.
Thank you, Tim. All right, Tim, how important is having a purpose in business, and what is your purpose? Maybe in 30 seconds.
So a purpose is an aim. It is an assignment. And life without a purpose is just an experiment. And that's not good. So we were created to be purposeful beings. And I live life on purpose on a daily basis. I'm all about purpose.
So what is your purpose? If you could say, finish this sentence, my purpose is.
My purpose is to live, because God gave me life. So I'm very alive. I like to go to sporting events, concerts, hit golf balls, crack jokes, run businesses, motivate people. So I am into living. My purpose is to live my life and then also to be a giver of life. But you got to live before you give. So I accept the gift of life. And I say, thank you, God, for letting me live. I'm very much alive.
That's a brilliant response. Thank you, Tim. Tim, two more questions. What would you like to do in the next 10 years or so? Like, what are your goals? What would you like to accomplish in the next 10 years? So you already hinted at you want to be kind of the next TV, a talk show host, I guess, top TV
like
host.
A Larry King. But I think that my answer is going to be much different than others. So like some of the guys that you have on, I know that they say, I want to touch 1 billion people by, or I want to touch half the planet, which would be 4 billion, or what I want to do, and I'm really not joking, I want to do my assignment. I feel like that God has given me these gifts. And right now I'm working in prison reform, which first started with Robert Downey, brought a couple of us together, literally 4 of us. I'm all up in prison reform. I'm in a new documentary that's doing amazing called Anxious Nation. And it's in film festivals everywhere. It's huge. I'm in that. That's my assignment right now. I'm big in the gaming community. I work with XSET. We have a gaming teams. I'm the mental health coach for the gaming community. So little Timmy Storey from Compton, I'm just doing my assignment. So let's see where that leads me in 10 years. How about that?
All right. Sounds good, Tim. So Tim, last question. What would you like to be your legacy to this world?
I think the legacy is always defined by the audience. I don't think one can ever say, I definitely want to be remembered as this, and then it usually happens. I think that you plow the ground in life, you plant the right seed, you water the seed, and you get the harvest. The harvest will be your legacy. So whether people name kids after me and you, or they put a wing at Harvard University on your name or my name, or we're in wings of hospitals, or we create books that last for the next 300 years. So we'll see. Right now, I live today on purpose, and I'm glad that people say that my life is a blessing. A lot of times when I see people at airports or wherever I am, they get emotional, and they say, "Man, like Tim, you really freaking helped change my life." So that's a good feeling. So we'll see what happens with the legacy part.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Tim, we can wrap up now, or unless you want to take another bonus question. It's totally your call.
I'm ready for the last bonus question.
Okay.
I hear the drum beat in the back, ladies and gentlemen. The bonus question.
All right, thank you, Tim. Tim, last bonus question. Wow, one question. I got like 10 of them for you. Why do we have to go left sometimes to get right?
So I have a famous quote, as you know. Sometimes you got to go left before you go right or even get right. I think it's because of who we are and the fact that we have free will. And so sometimes what your parents told you was actually correct. Don't date that guy. Be careful of that. But you went left anyway. But even in your challenges and mistakes, you went left. But you can turn that left into what I call a library of learning and a sanctuary for getting deeper. So a lot of clients that I life coach, part of their strength is they went left before they went right. So a lot of people that do like extremely well financially, like a Grant Cardone, he went left and then he got right. So, to go left, sometimes you have to you sit left and then you get seasoned on your left. It teaches you to soar on your right. So sometimes you got to go left before you get right.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Tim. All right, Tim. So we're going to conclude now, folks. So this is Dr. Anthony Criniti IV, also known as Dr. Finance. You've been watching the Dr. Finance Live podcast. And I wanted to just leave the floor for you, Tim, maybe for a moment or two. If you want to share anything that we haven't talked about, share your social media sites, your website, where they can get more information. Any last things you want to share, Tim? The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, number one, I want to say thank you for not a good interview, but excellent. I can't wait till so many people watch this. I want to boost it real big on our side too. This is just really, really good what you've done. I just want to say to those that want to speak, you want to be a better speaker. I started something called How to Master the Stage, but it was by popular demand because most of the speakers that you see would come to me on the DL, which is the down low, and say, Tim, can you tweak me? Can you help me? So I started working with 3 different speaking coaches, acting coaches, and I created something new on how to master the stage. So you can find out all about that and what it costs and how we do it at timstorey.com. And then I still coach businesses and people one-on-one. That's all at timstorey.com. So now 60 seconds of this. When you're feeling the sting of your setback, life is preparing your comeback. So I know the setback does not feel good, but don't sit in your setback. Don't settle in your setback. Please don't cement yourself in the setback. Because don't forget, while you're feeling the sting of the setback, could be divorce, could be physical problems, problems with your body, problems with your children. While you're feeling the sting of your setback, life is preparing your comeback. So get up, get going, because life is still good.
Tim, that is incredible, Tim. Tim, and what is your website again?
So it's Tim Storey. So it's TIM, and then STOREY.com, timstorey.com. And then on Instagram, I'm Tim Storey Official, Tim Storey Official. And then I can't wait to be with you in just a few weeks.
On Clubhouse. That's going to be incredible. So Tim,
it's be a big night.
Oh, that's going to be a great night. Tim, what other platforms are you on? Just mainly Instagram is your top thing?
We're on all the different platforms. But Instagram is where I'm probably most active. TikTok, I still don't understand.
Yeah, you and me both.
But I'm on there a little bit, but mostly Instagram is where we rock and roll. But we do a lot of Facebook Lives to get a lot of people to watch. But timstorey.com and then Tim Storey Official on Instagram.
Timstorey.com, folks, check that out. And don't forget, so we got it lined up for November 4th. It's a Friday in the Finance Club on Clubhouse. Check out my website. You will have more info on that. Also, my social media. So drfinance.info, okay? And that's where also the podcasts are listed, as well as my 3 books. I have The Necessity of Finance, folks. If you want to learn more about finance, this is my first book. I wrote it for my finance students about 10 years ago, which led to the conclusions of the most important lessons in economics and finance. And my finale book would be The Survival of the Richest. All my conclusions came together, a 500+ page book about a lot of different things. So check them out, folks. Check Tim's books out. Check our website out. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. Tim, any last minute thoughts? Or you,
I do have a last minute thought. Buy those books. Buy those books. Build up your mentality on finances and just keep following what Dr. Finance is doing. And let's level up.
That's incredible. Thank you, Tim. Again, I'm so honored to have you here, sir. I really appreciate you, and definitely looking forward to the next Clubhouse event. So, folks, definitely follow, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, folks.